Last time we took the Synty Town asset pack and we updated it for the enhanced input system. This time what we want to do is make these vehicles drivable. To get the Chaos Vehicles system working in our project, all we have to do is go to Plugins and then type Chaos Vehicle. But you'll see there's two different plugins. The one we want to choose is this second one, the experimental one, because this is the one that is used by Unreal Engine when you start up a new game and you choose this vehicle sample. We'll go to the content drawer here, go to input, and we're going to need a new context. So we had the walking context in the last video. This time we're going to have a driving context, which is just a way to have different controls depending on what you're doing. So we'll go to right click over here, hit input, input mapping context. I'm going to call IMC for input mapping context, and driving. This is going to be the map. The map needs to have a bunch of assets, which are controls. So let's go ahead and add some different controls. Now, what controls are we going to need? We're going to need throttle. We're going to need brake. We're going to need steering. We're going to need looking. And we want to be able to get into vehicles and get out of vehicles. So there's a few different actions, and let's start with the throttle. So IA throttle. We'll go into the editor for the throttle here. And the throttle is, we could just do a Boolean where it's just like you push the button and you got the throttle. But I like the idea of being able to use a pedal or to use the trigger on a controller. So we're going to change that to an Axis 1D. Now, let's set up the brake. And it's going to be exactly the same thing. We're going to go here, IA brake. Same deal. We could use a single button, but let's let people lightly press the brakes or put your foot down on the brakes. Now let's do steering. Now you might think, because walking around is a 2D axis, that we want a 2D axis for IA steer. Well, steering is actually just one dimension. You're just going left or you're going right. So you're either in the positive values on the right or in the negative values on the left. So we just need a single 1D axis for steering. Now what about looking? So you're in the car and you want to be able to pan around the camera. That's almost identical to what we want with a third-person walking camera. So we're going to just continue to use the existing IA look action for that. Now, we need to be able to get into a vehicle and we need to be able to get out of a vehicle. We could use the same action like a use action, but to me that feels a little bit awkward when you're in a vehicle and then you hit the use button, that gets you out. Especially when you think about it when you're trying to like make a settings page. What should the words be in the settings page that will tell the user that this button lets them get out of the car? So I'm going to make two different actions. One for use, for when you're outside of the car to get into a car or to use any other object. And the second one when you're in a car to get out of the car, and they're going to be mapped to the same button, but I think it'll just make a lot more sense to the user. So we'll go ahead and create an input action called IA use. I'll move my head out of the way. And let's go ahead and duplicate this and we'll make it IA exit vehicle. And these by default are Boolean. So there's nothing to set up in either of these cases. Great. Now we have all of the action, the new action assets. but we haven't put them into the context yet. So they haven't been mapped into a context. So first of all, let's go to the walking context, which we already have a bunch of things in here, but we don't have the new use button. So we're going to go ahead and add a new mapping, and we'll find our new use button. We'll open that up, and I'm going to use the E key for the keyboard. And for the controller, I'm going to map that to the face button up, which is not working by default here. So we're going to have to go to gamepad face button top. There we go, which is a triangle on a PlayStation controller, X on a Nintendo controller, and Y on an Xbox controller. We don't have to add any modifiers for the use button because it's just a Boolean. Now let's go and add all of the mapping context to this fresh new driving context. First of all, let's add throttle and brake. So we'll add throttle there, we'll add brake, then maybe steering, that's another car related one. Then we'll do IA look, and we'll do exit vehicle. So I think that's all 5 of the controls that we're going to have in a vehicle. For throttle, I'm going to use the W key on the keyboard, and by default it will map to the X value, which is fine. We don't need to swizzle it because it's a single floating point. And for the trigger on the controller, that will be a little bit different. Let's see here. There we go. All right, my problem was that I didn't have the controller on. So we've got the right trigger for the gas. We don't have to have any modifiers on that because the triggers are a little bit less sensitive than the joysticks. But if we found that like whenever we put the controller down on a surface that it would just slightly hit the gas, we can easily go in here into the modifiers and add a dead zone. I'm just going to leave that out for now until I see that problem. For the brake, very similar story. So we will do S for the brake, and then for the controller, we'll do the left side for the brake, left trigger. Now for steering, I'm going to use A and D. So this will be a little bit different. Go ahead and add 2 keyboard things here. There's already one in there. So, okay, first we'll do A, which is going in the wrong direction. So we want to do a negate because right is the right direction. So left is the wrong direction. And then D, which goes in the right direction, doesn't have to have any modifiers on it. And on the controller, I want to make steering the axis here. So I'm going to push the axis, and it automatically detected that it was the left thumbstick X axis. But since I'm using a thumbstick, now I do need to add a dead zone, otherwise it'll start drifting, turning. So we don't want that. And for look, keyboard and mouse, we use a mouse, so that should be easy for that look. And for the controller, we're going to use the right joystick. So we'll go to gamepad, right thumbstick 2D axis, because we want to be able to go up and down and orbit around the vehicle. And since we're using a joystick, we do need to have a dead zone. Also, I personally like inverted y-axis, so I'm going to go ahead and do a negate only on the y-axis for the mouse, and we'll do the same thing here. Negate only on the y-axis. That's all set up. Now exit vehicle, we will make it exactly the same as we did for use. So we're going to have E and gamepad face button top. So we'll do E, whoops, I said W, so E, and for the controller, gamepad face button top. And that is all of the input assets. Now let's create a pawn that will control the vehicle. We'll go to Blueprint Class, All Classes, and type Vehicle, and we'll see this wheeled vehicle pawn, and that's what we want to create. We'll call this pawn vehicle. Now, first thing is we have to have a skeletal mesh asset. So we'll go in here and we'll choose the Synty asset of the convertible. If we open up the skeletal mesh here, we'll see that there are bones for every one of the wheels and even the steering wheel. So that's what we're going to need to be able to animate this car. Now that we have the skeletal mesh asset, if we look in here in the skeletal mesh and we go scroll down, we're looking for a physics asset. This is very important. We need to have the physics asset. And what this basically is kind of like collisions. And the collisions have, it's very hard to see right here because the zoom by default is -4. But they have a constraint. Each one of these wheels has a constraint, which is just that yellow box. I can't read this, but I'm just clicking the yellow box. And then over here, we'll see that they have different settings on each of these things. So what we need to do is we need to go through each one of these constraints and just make sure that they are unlocked in the spinning direction. So first of all, we'll go to front left wheel, click on constraint, scroll down here, and we'll see, twist motion is locked. So let's make sure that that is unlocked. And now you can see there's a little green disc. Unfortunately, that green disc is in the wrong direction. You can see that it's kind of like going this direction, but around the x-axis, but we want it to go around the y-axis if we're looking down here at this gizmo. So we will not only change it to free, but we'll come up here to the rotation, and on the left side we'll use -90. There we go. And on the right side we'll use +90. So we'll do the same thing for front right. Click on the yellow constraint area. We can set this to +90 right away. Change the twist motion to free. Back left wheel, constraint, twist motion free, -90. Back right wheel, constraint, +90, twist motion free. We can save that. And now we're done creating the pawn. Now we want to get in the car or exit the vehicle. So we want to be able to look around, find a car, hit a button, get inside of it. And when we're in the car, we want to be able to get out and then go find another car or do something else. First, let's go to the event graph on the car, and we're going to delete everything because we don't use any of those things. Now, whenever the pawn is possessed, we get this controller event Here it is, event receive controller changed. I just typed controller event because I can never remember the name of that thing. And that's good because the possessed event, if we say possessed, is a server only event. So we want this one. Then let's go back to our third person character where we did the same kind of thing. And we're just going to copy all of this stuff. In fact, let's just copy the whole thing. We'll go back to the pawn vehicle. We'll delete this and paste it here. But this time, instead of walking, what we want is the driving context. However, you'll see that there's a problem because we want to replace the walking context with the driving context. So that's pretty easy. We can just take this enhanced input player subsystem and we can say remove mapping context. Pretty easy. We'll reroute this node around here. And we'll get this, we don't have to set up a player controller at all. And we will remove the walking context. Copy that node, go back to the third person character, and let's do the opposite here. When you're going into a character, we want to remove the driving context. There we go. Now, let's figure out how are we going to get into the vehicle. Well, what we want to do is we want to cast a line forward, basically do a line trace, and if anything that line hits happens to be a pawn vehicle, then we want to get into the pawn vehicle. We want to possess the pawn vehicle. So back in the third person character, we're going to add that new use event that we just created. So IA use event, choose that. And the end result that we want is to possess the pawn that we find. So I'm going to say possess, and it doesn't show up. So we want to uncheck context sensitive and choose this function that's just called possess, nothing else like event possessed or something like that. There we go. Now the target is a controller. So what we need to do is get controller. Oops, wrong one. Get player controller is what we want. Here we go, get pawn controller, much better. And we'll put that in the target. Now we don't know what pawn it is yet. So let's move this over here, move my face out of the way. Now we want to do what is called a line trace, which is kind of like a raycast, but not for graphics. So if we say line trace in the search here, then we want to do line trace by channel. And the channel we want is visibility because we want to be able to see something. Now this out hit result is going to be some crazy structure with a lot of different things in it. So we can right click on that, split the struct pin, and now we'll see a bunch of different things. What we want is this actor because a pawn is an actor. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a bit more room. Now, how do we know if that pawn is the vehicle or if it's another player or a mailbox or a telephone? Well, we can easily just cast to a pawn vehicle which is that new class that we made. And if it fails, then it's not the thing that we want. So we can ignore when it fails. If it was successful, then we want to change which thing that we're controlling. So we're going to possess that new thing, and it's a pawn, so we can just hook that straight over there. Now I'd like to turn on this debug thing. So we'll do debug for duration. We'll open this up and it says 5 seconds. I'm going to set that down to 2 seconds because I want to be able to see information about where in the world am I looking when I'm hitting this button. And we'll go ahead and hook up the execution pin. So now when I compile and hit play, and then we start moving around. Now if I push the use button, nothing's happening. Why is that? If we go over here to the start and end, we'll see that they're both at 0, 0. So it's doing a trace from in the middle of the map to the middle of the map, and it couldn't find any pawns. What we want to do is go from where the character's center is forward a little bit and then trace that. So let's get the actor forward vector. We're going to go ahead and break this link here. And the actor forward vector is in unit space, so it's just like 1. And we want to multiply that by some distance that we want to go. So we're going to multiply it. We're going to change this to a float. And let's say we want to look 3 meters in front of us. So 300 Unreal units. That will be good for the end location. And the start location, actually we need to add something, so we'll break this. Then we need to get actor location. There we go. So this will be the start location. Then we take the forward vector and we will add it to the start location. So we're going to say plus for the add operation, and that will be the end. So we'll take this forward vector, go ahead 300 units, and then whatever we find in between the location of the character and 300 units in front of it is what the trace will find. So when we hit compile and play, now let's push the button. Well, it's working pretty good, except that when I hold the button down, I get 1,000,000 traces, and I just want one trace when I push the button. So what's the problem with that? That is because over in our third-person character, we have triggered as the execution pin. What we want is just started. So let's move started over there. We'll break that one. Choose that one first and then that one. Oh, the other way around. This one first and then that one. There we go. Q to align. And now let's try it again. Much better. Okay, so let's go over to the vehicle and look at that. It hits. Isn't that great? But it's not getting in the vehicle. Why not? Because this is not our pawn vehicle. You can see it's a SM vehicle convertible. So it's an actor that's just a skeletal mesh. So what we can do is we can take this one vehicle here and right click on it, and we're going to say edit. We're going to replace that actor And oh, it doesn't have our new pawn. So let's go to vehicles here, choose pawn, come back here and reopen this up here. Right click, replace actor with pawn blueprint. There we go. Boom. But the color changed. Synty uses the materials for the colors. So we were on O1A. If we go check out O2A, that's orange. O3A is white. I don't know. I think maybe O1, O2 was pretty cool. Yeah, because it's sort of a reddish orange. Let's use that one. Great. Now let's go ahead and play again. Push the button to make sure it works. And look, now we're in the car. That's awesome. But the problem is we can't see. And there's another problem if I press F8 on the keyboard here and I zoom out. Uh-oh, we can see that there is a character still, and it's just mindlessly walking forward even though I'm not pushing any of the controls. So we need to get rid of the character or put the character in the car. Getting rid of the character is going to be easier. So let's go back to the third person character here. At the end, after we get into the car, so let's select this area here, make a comment, get in car. After we get in the car, then we're going to destroy ourselves. So the target is self. And then this right here is the cast. So this is the use part of this. So use, IA use. Move these over here. And let's make this one red for actions. I know my face is in the way, but you get the point. Okay, so IA use does the trace. Right after the trace, we're making this new comment section for getting in the car. The reason why we're doing that is because we might want to cast it to something else, to like use a phone booth or use the gas pump. We'll compile and save. Nothing has changed here yet, except that we're going to get rid of the character. Okay, now we're stuck on the floor. We'll go like this, zoom out, play again. There we go. Go over to the car, use it, press F8, zoom out, and we don't have an accidental driver that is just running forever. Now we are the car. Now let's make it so we can get out of the vehicle. Let's go back to the pawn vehicle and we're going to add a new exit vehicle event. There it is, IA exit vehicle. And the goal of this is to create the character that we destroyed. Which character should we create? Well, if we go to the level and we go to this override here and edit, we'll see that it's set to the shopkeeper as the default pawn class, but that might change. So I'm going to just go ahead and get the game mode in code, get the default pawn class, and create whatever is set there. So we'll go over here, get game mode, default pawn class. All right, now we need to create an object or spawn it into the world. So spawn actor from class. We'll connect these. And then once we spawn that character, we want to start controlling it. So we want to possess not add possessable, but possess, which is not under context sensitive. So just possess. And we're going to possess the new object that we just created. This right here, we also need to set up the controller object because self is a pawn in this case, and this thing is taking a controller, not a pawn. So let's say get controller, which is a thing under pawn. There we go. Now this part is wrong because the spawn transform is going to be set to 0, 0, 0, which is the center of the world. So what we want to do is actually put it wherever the vehicle was. So let's get transform, get actor transform, which is going to be the vehicle's transform because we're here inside of the vehicle. And we want to do some changes to it because we don't want to put the character directly in the middle of the vehicle when they get out. We want to kind of put them to the side. So let's say transform this this location. So we're going to take this transform, we're going to transform it. This is a noun transform, this is the verb transform. And we want to put the character a little bit in the air because if we look at the character component, it's about 1 meter in the air where the middle of that character is. So we'll go 100 Unreal units up. Then we want to move it to the left, which is the opposite of the right. Right is X, so let's say -75. And now this thing right here is a vector instead of a transform. So we need to make a transform. So let's say over here from this one, we'll call make transform. And let's move all of these things down here. And let's go ahead and break this transform. So we have a new location. The rotation and the scale, we're only going to keep one part of the rotation, which is the yaw. Because if the vehicle is parked on a hill sideways or front up and down, which would be the roll or the pitch, we don't want to keep either of those values. All we want to keep is which direction the vehicle is faced in. So we'll keep that. And the scale, if for some reason the vehicle is smaller or bigger, we want to just reset for the character when we create the character. So I think that this should work. We should create a character and then possess it. And it's going to create the character 75 to the left and 100 up. Let's see what happens. So we go up to the vehicle, we get inside of it, and now we're going to push the exit vehicle button. And that's weird. Why did we appear inside the vehicle when we specifically said move it to the left 75 units? That's very weird. Well, if we look at the vehicle itself and we go to the top viewport, this is interesting. So the X is going forward. And what we did is we just went 75 units to right here on the negative X. What we want to do is we want to go about, it looks like 100 units to the negative Y, because Y is pointing down. So we want to do negative 100 units this way. So that way we appear right here, right outside the door. So let's go ahead and fix that inside of the graph here. This should be 0 on the X, and this should be negative 100 on the Y. And now since that was a weird thing, we should always comment whenever there's a weird thing. So vehicle is pointed toward X. And that way when we come back here and we look at these values, we'll remember, oh, that's right, that's why X is 0, because we don't want to go forward on the car, we just want to go to the side of the car. Let's try this again. Go up to the vehicle, get in the car, get out of the car, and look at that. That's perfect. Right outside the door. Before we set up the physics, let's get looking working, because I'm tired of looking at the dashboard. First of all, why is the camera inside of the dash? The reason is because we don't have this camera boom or camera component like we do with the third person character. So let's go ahead to the vehicle and we're just going to add a boom or a spring arm. There it is, spring arm. And let's add a camera inside of the spring arm. There we go. How do we know what settings are the right ones? Well, we just hit compile and we come back here to the map. Whenever we have a pawn that has, or any actor that has a camera inside of it, we'll be able to see this preview window that shows us what it's going to look like. So let's go to the spring arm here. We're going to adjust some of the values. First of all, let's change the offset. Instead of 3 meters, let's do 6 meters, so 600 units. And the target offset, let's bring this up, I don't know, 200 meters. That's pretty good. I'm going to take the camera and I'm going to rotate it down a little bit because I don't want to see so much of the sky. So let's rotate it down maybe 20 degrees. Let's go back to the spring arm and adjust how high the camera is so that we can see a lot of the road in front of us. So that's about 350. So we'll do 350 even. Target arm 600, offset 350, and the camera -20 on the Y axis. So that's good for this particular vehicle, but it won't copy to all of the vehicles in the future. To do that, we'll go to the base for that particular vehicle, which is this pawn vehicle, and we'll re-enter all those values. So 600 for the arm length, 350 for the target, go to the camera, and -20 for the Y rotation. Compile that, save that. We'll come back here and then see if these are overridden anymore. So that's not overridden, so we're good. And we know it's overridden because it would have like a little arrow here. And so all of that, like if we were to adjust this again, see there's a little arrow. So we'll set it back to the default value now. And now when we hit play and we move our character up to the car and we get in, now that is so much better looking. Switching between these cameras like this. Yeah, that is exactly what I want. I want it to look like this when I'm driving, and I want it to be like this when I'm in the character. Now that we have the spring arm set up, let's make it so that the controls control where the spring arm is looking. If we look at the third person character, it's actually changing the direction that the character is looking. We don't want that. We want the steering wheel to change the direction of which way the car goes. What we want is to just move that spring arm. So let's get the spring arm component. We'll add the IA look action. Then we're going to add some rotation, and we'll choose relative rotation. We will split this struct pin and the rotation pin, so that way we can directly control different rotation axes. We want the X, which is like left and right on the mouse, to change the yaw, and we want up and down on the mouse, the Y value, to change the pitch. We'll go ahead and connect all of this together and see how it feels. Hit play, get into the car, and it feels good, but when I stop, it immediately stops, and the spring arm has a spring in it. So let's make use of that. We'll go to the spring and we'll turn that spring on by adding the camera lag. And we'll hit compile, hit save, and we'll just go here to make sure that it is on the actual instance too. We'll go ahead and play again, and now see it kind of eases when I let go, which just feels a little bit better. On the mouse it feels really good too. This is going to be the area where there's the most amount of configuration variables, because it's a physics thing, and the Chaos Vehicles plugin is really complex. There's just so many things that you can set, but we're just going to set the minimum things to get this driving, and then you can go ahead and tweak them to make it work for your game. First of all, the most important thing is that it's a physics object. So we need to turn physics on. If we don't turn physics on, nothing is going to work. So let's go to the pawn, and we're going to scroll down to the physics area here, and there's a checkbox, simulate physics. However, sometimes this, you cannot check it, it's grayed out. When that happens, the reason is because you don't have a skeletal mesh attached, or inside the skeletal mesh, you don't have a physics asset. So you need to have both of those things. You need a skeletal mesh and a physics asset. Once you have both of those things, you can check the simulate physics box. Great. Now, let's set up the engine of the car. If we go to the vehicle movement component, we will find some settings for the engine setup. So we got mechanical setup, and there's the engine setup. Now, by default, you'll see this torque curve, and there's no external curve, and there's no points on this graph at all. So if you were to hit the throttle, nothing would happen. So let's go ahead and double click anywhere in here, or not double click, right click anywhere in here and hit add key. And then I'm going to move this window over so I can see the two fields here. There's a time field and a value field. So from the moment that we press the throttle, the time of 0, or really like when the engine is revving at the very start, we want to give it 100% torque. That's just going to be the easiest way to do it. You can make it an actual curve to make it more realistic, but we just want to get it working. So, but that is very important. If you don't have something here in this torque curve area, then you're going to get an error or a warning. Now we need to actually set up wheels. So it needs to know, like, where are the wheels? Is this a tricycle? Is this a bike? Like, what is this? So if we click on this button here to create a wheel, you'll notice that there is a wheel class, and there's only one possible thing in here. And there's a bone name for which wheel that this belongs to. So we're going to need 4 of these objects here, these wheel objects, and they're going to correspond to the 4 bones that are inside of the skeletal mesh. So if I go back over to the skeletal mesh, I'm going to just right click on this and copy the bone name. So that's going to be front left. We'll put that here. Go back here, front right. Put that on the second one. Rear left, and finally rear right. Now you might think that this will work, but it won't, because by default a chaos vehicle wheel is not powered by the engine. So we need to make a subclass of a chaos vehicle wheel. Let's go to the content drawer inside of our vehicle here. We're going to make two classes of wheels. One of them is going to be affected by steering, and the other one is going to be in the back, not affected by steering. So let's go over here. We're going to make a new blueprint class. In the search area, we'll type wheel, and we'll find this chaos vehicle wheel, not the pawn, but the wheel itself. So we'll select that, and this will be wheel car front. Because in the Synty assets, all the cars are about the same, so I'm assuming that their tire sizes are going to be about the same. And we can change later to make this like the convertible or something, but for now we're just going to keep it simple, and we're going to have car front. And let's go ahead and edit it before we do the rear. So open up the properties here, and over on the side here inside the details, we're going to change the axle type. Since this is a front wheel, we're going to put it in the front. Then the wheel radius, that might be difficult to determine if you haven't made the model yourself. Like I didn't make these are Synty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the physical asset, and I'm going to look at this front wheel here, and I'm going to look under the primitives, because there's already a primitive set up, and look at that. I've got the radius of the wheel is like 40 point something. Well, I'm going to go to the right hand view to see how closely that matches the model. And look, it's very, very close. Well, what if I were to change this to just 40 even? It shrunk in the tiniest imperceivable amount. If I change it to 45, you'll see it's a lot bigger. So 40 even seems like the right thing that the model makers were using for this tire. So I'm going to keep that 40 for the front left. We're going to go to the front right. That's another kind of 40. Then we'll go to the rear left, and let's look at that just to make sure that the tire sizes are the same, and it looks like they are. Look at that, that's a slightly different 40, so we'll change that to 40 even. And the rear right, we'll change that to 40 even. So now we know for sure the physical assets are going to be 40, and we're going to match that in the chaos vehicle system. So the wheel radius here we'll set to 40. Now the width, we'll have to go back to the model to see what the width looks like. I'm going to go and choose the front view, I think. And I can't really tell. I mean, I could sort of guess based on this. So I'm going to show the grid. And now, let's see here. I'm going to change lit to wireframe. It's still not quite easy to see in the physics asset. So let's go back to the skeletal mesh and change this to wireframe, and we'll show the grid on this one. There we go, that's a little better. And now we'll see the front. Oh, am I showing the grid still? Yeah, let's go to wireframe. You know, it's just really hard to see that graph. So I'm going to just move it over to here to line it up with the scale. And it seems like that is 10. So it's probably about 30. And I think that's going to be fine to estimate it at 30. So let's go ahead and change the width to be 30 on these masses. Now, what else is different about the front wheel is that the front wheel is definitely affected by steering. So we'll go ahead and press the check box on affected by steering. Now we need to decide, is this a front wheel drive vehicle? And do the front wheels have brakes on them? I'm going to say yes, they are affected by the brakes. We don't have handbrake controls. You can add that later. And let's look at the model to see what it looks like, to see if it is a front wheel drive vehicle or not. I'm going to look at perspective, change it back to lit mode, and let's spin around this model here. If I go look under the model, go here. Oh. Okay, so under the model here, we can see this drive shaft. So I think that when I'm looking at under the model, it looks like there's a drive shaft that's connecting all four. So if the engine is in the front of the car, it can power the rear wheels, or if it's in the back of the car, it can power the front wheels. And let's go ahead and look from the top. And from the top, it looks like there's definitely an engine back here. So I'm going to say that it is an all-wheel drive vehicle, and that this is a frunk, not an engine. So let's go back to the front viewport, and we're going to say yes, on the front wheels, they are affected by the engine. Save that, compile it, and let's go back to the assets, and we're going to make a copy of this. So we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to call this wheel car rear. And we'll open up this, and now we're going to change the properties because we just copied it from the front. So it's going to be the rear. They are not affected by steering, but they are affected by the engine because it's an all-wheel drive car. Now let's go back to the pawn, and we're going to change the classes here. So FL and FR are for the front. So we'll do that, F for front. And RL and RR are for the rear. So we'll put that as the rear. Now we have all of these set up, and we are done connecting the engine and getting all the physics system working. Now let's connect the controls to the vehicle engine or the physical model. We'll go to pawn vehicle here. We've already got the look set up, so let's connect the other inputs. We've got the throttle input, IA throttle, we have IA brake, and we have IA steer. So we'll right click here, IA throttle, choose the event for that. Then IA brake, and finally IA steer. These are all going to be about the same, connecting them together, and it's very easy the way that they created this vehicle, the Chaos Vehicle plugin. So what we'll do is we'll get the vehicle movement component, and on here you'll see that there's a set throttle. Pretty easy. And how much throttle do we want to give it? We want to give it whatever the input action is. Then we don't want it just after the trigger, but we also want to do it when you cancel. So that way when you let go of the throttle, the car doesn't just keep going. So we want to make sure that it has both triggered and canceled, otherwise the input is going to keep getting triggered over and over again. Now we'll do the same thing for brake. Pull a pin off of here, set brake. Very easy. Move this here. Make sure we hook up the amount of brake to that pin there. And then finally, oh, I forgot, we might have had our brake stuck. So let's go to cancel, add that. And then we'll do the same thing for steering. It's so easy. Set steer, steering input, there we go. This is a really easy to hook up system here. And we got to make sure that we set canceled. Okay, so I'm going to select this, make a comment throttle, Make a comment here, brake, and make a comment here, steering. Let's try it out, see how it works. Play the game, get into the vehicle. Now I'm going to pull the throttle and it's going forward, and I'm going to let go of the throttle and it's not going forward anymore. I'm steering, that's working really well. I can go left and right. When I let go though, it's kind of still continuing to steer as if the alignment was out of whack. Now let's try the brake. Uh-oh. I tried the brake and now I can't control at all. So I think that this triggered canceled. Oh, it's not canceled that we want. We want to completed, not canceled. So canceled is for a press and hold type of thing. So like if you had an action where you like held it and then like a trigger wheel came and then you let go before the trigger completed, that's what canceled is. So let's break this. Not canceled, but completed. And not canceled, but completed. Let's try it again. Oh no, I'm on the wrong side of town. So I selected my pawn and then I pressed F to jump back over here. Let's get back in the vehicle. Okay, trigger is making it go forward, brake, stopping, and oh, if I keep holding, then I go backward. That's great. And the steering is working. And if I let go of steering, then it continues. Whoa, it continues to go forward. So I think now we've completely set up the input to match the physical system, but you'll see the tires don't move. It's just kind of floating around. And we want those tires to react to the surface. Like when we go over these bumps here, we want them to kind of like bump up and ride over the bump. As well as when we turn the wheels, we want the wheels on the model to turn. And that's going to be pretty easy to set up. First, what we need to do is set up an animation blueprint. If we go to the vehicle, the pawn vehicle, and we look at the very top here, there's this animation area, and we see the animation mode is use animation blueprint, which is correct, but there's no class. So we need to create a new animation class for this pawn. We'll go to the content drawer and into our new vehicle folder, and I'm going to just right click over here, and now you might go over here and create an animation blueprint right here. But if you do it that way, then the base class is going to be incorrect. So let's do it the wrong way and then fix it, because it's pretty easy to fix. So we'll create the animation blueprint. Now it's asking what is the skeleton for this animation blueprint, and we chose the convertible, so we're going to choose this convertible skeleton here. We'll hit create, and we're just going to call this anim BP convertible, because each of these skeletal meshes has a slightly different bone structure. Now we have the convertible, and we'll open it up, and we have our output pose, and we need to drive this output pose somehow. So the way that we drive it is, first we need to get the mesh reference. So we'll right click here and type mesh ref. We've got the mesh space ref pose. Then we will go into a thing called the wheel controller, and the wheel controller is part of the Chaos vehicle plugin. So we'll just type wheel controller. Uh-oh, there's nothing. So if we take off context sensitive, there's still nothing. Wait a minute. Why is there nothing? Well, that's because, like I just said, the base class of this anim blueprint is incorrect. We need to use the one from the Chaos Vehicles plugin. So we can change that by going to the class settings here, go to anim instance for the parent class, and we'll see there's a new thing here called the vehicle animation instance. We'll choose that one. And now when we right click and we choose wheel controller, now you see we actually have something that we can use. So we'll take the component, pull that into there, then we'll change this from component to local. And then finally put that in the result. And that is all that we need to do. In the vehicle sample, there's also a control rig in the middle here, and that is so that you can adjust the control arms for the vehicle so that they kind of like animate too. But you can see that my simple vehicle here from the Synty pack doesn't have those models, those like visual models in here. It just has like a tire. So we don't need to use a control rig. So now that that is all connected, we can go back to the pawn vehicle and make sure that we choose our new animation blueprint. If we don't do that, then nothing is going to get animated. We add that new animation blueprint, hit save, go back to the demo, hit play, get in the car, we'll turn the camera so we can see what happens. And look at that. It just immediately works. Isn't that the coolest? What a great plugin this is. And then if I turn the vehicle wheels, look at that. They're just turning exactly the right way. So now we are totally done. You can get into the vehicle, you can get out of the vehicle, get back into the vehicle. The animation is working great. The engine is set up. You know, there's a few things that we could tweak, like how much power this car has, how much acceleration. We could even start adding these things to the other vehicles. But now we're basically at a place where we're tweaking things and we're not setting things up anymore. So I hope you enjoyed this series on taking the Synty Town Polygon, the Synty Polygon Town assets, and adding the new enhanced input system and making it so that we can drive vehicles.